Hello, welcome to OnVoice. I'm here with Christella Anthony, the voice specialist, speech and language therapist. So the concept of the show is that we answer your questions, or Christella answers your questions on general voice, performance voice, transgender voice, working as a speech and language therapist or a voice specialist, and everything kind of in between. So let's get into the questions. Voice then. What would you say is the difference between a vocal coach or vocal teacher, or as opposed to a voice specialist, speech and language therapist?
So speech and language therapists, of which is my training, my qualification, are really allied medical health professionals. So we kind of have links to the medical profession, which means that we can refer and liaise with doctors, ENT consultants, GPs, other allied medical health services like physiotherapists, occupational therapists, counsellors, psychotherapists, and that's really the main difference, that we have those links. So that's very important because voice has often a basis of disorder behind it. If there's a voice issue, it's because there's been a voice disorder or there's something wrong with the vocal cords. It can be muscle tension dysphonia, but even that tends to be diagnosed by ear, nose and throat consultants. So majority of our referrals for just voice clients would come from an ear, nose and throat consultant.
Right.
So in that, they'd refer to us, then we do some treatment. They often go back to the ENT. Vocal coaches and teachers do very good work, but they tend to do work that's not so much with voice disorders or vocal pathologies. So they're often a next step for people. Just like singing teachers should really be a next step, where the voice specialist, speech and language therapist is usually working with vocal rehabilitation in terms of voice work. Obviously I do work with trans work and singing voice, so I don't always work with voices that are disordered or have a vocal cord problem. But generally, traditionally in the NHS, voice specialist, speech and language therapists would work with in collaboration with ENT doctors, where a voice teacher or a vocal coach would not tend to do that.
Right. So looking at gender, quite often we get asked from potential clients whether or not they can start their voice feminisation or even the voice masculinisation if they've not fully transitioned or are only presenting part-time as the desired gender.
The short answer for that is yes, definitely. I mean, people can come for voice therapy from very early on, when perhaps they're presenting in the gender they were natally assigned rather than the one they want to transition to. That's fine. It tends to work better when people are a little bit further down the line, because the voice work has a bit more relevance, and even having a little bit of pressure closer on to transition or going out more in the gender that you want to go out with, that tends to encourage people to practice. But I've certainly taken people right from the very beginning, from their natally assigned gender presentation right and all the way through their transition steps right until the end. And for some people, they need that level of support. Voice work is such a big thing, it means so much to them, they want to start it very early.
Right.
And I think speech and language therapists are one of the very big support areas for people, above and beyond just the voice work, really, just because of the nature of the fact that they come to see us many times.
Right.
So that's you do build a relationship with people and a confidential space for people to practice, even perhaps to present. So it's quite a multi-layered thing. In the NHS, it's a little bit different in public services, because very often they have very limited sessions. They may only have 4 to 6 sessions that the services are able to offer people. And in those instances, I tend to advise people to come as close to the presentation that they would like to have. Of course, not everybody wants to make a full-time transition anyway. So it's a bit of an individual case.
Okay, and again, a secondary question, just throwing it out there, because I'm a bit of a layman on all of this stuff. Do you think, I mean, obviously you said they can start, would you recommend somebody to have at least begun the transition? If you were to say you're better, I mean, would you say there's a preference to one way or the other of doing it either before or mid-transition, or is there no hard and fast rule, or?
if there had to be a choice, I think it would be more advisable for the person to go a little bit further beyond. But on the other hand, I think sometimes speech therapists are the ones who help people decide what is the right timing. Sure. So what I would say is come for the assessment if that's offered to you, and then discuss it through with the therapist whether the timing seems most optimal for you, especially if budgets constraints are an issue, because you don't want somebody to have 4 sessions, just get going on it, and then that's all the money they have to spend on it. Yeah. Or that's all the service in the NHS will be able to offer at that point. So if money's not a main consideration and somebody wants to just put as much input as they can, then starting earlier might work for that person.
Right. Okay. So looking at speech and language therapists now that you supervise quite often, for them when they're considering working with clients, how important is posture when it comes to voicing?
It's a question I get asked quite a lot. In some ways, I like to kind of demystify posture, or perhaps kind of take some of the myth that's surrounded around it. Obviously, as I'm sitting here, I'm quite aware of my posture, I suppose, in that I'm not too hunched over and my head's not like pressing down like this. If I was going to be sitting in that bad a posture, it would have a bearing on my voice. So we always encourage people to have a reasonably good posture. Neither the head tipped back too much like this, you can see it's put a different quality on my voice, neither too far down, that's going to put a different quality. So if those extremes are going to make a difference. Sure. I'd usually say to people, look forward, head up a little bit and look forward. But it's very possible to have a very good posture but still have a very bad voice. So it's not necessarily the case that I will improve my posture and suddenly voice will be better. Yeah. If I have a vocal pathology or a very constricted way of voicing, for example, just adjusting my posture is unlikely to shift all of that, especially if there's pathology involved. I mean, changing your posture is not going to get rid of something like a vocal swelling, like a cyst or something. So if I can, just demonstrate that I'm using reasonably good posture now. My shoulders are back, they're down, my head is forward, but my voice is like this. So say I've developed this kind of voice quality. It's made no difference that I've got good posture. Similarly, I'm going to just return my voice quality to my normal voice quality, which is this, but I'm going to suddenly kind of let my shoulders down and let my back kind of go a bit hunched and look down a little bit. But my voice is staying pretty reasonable to very good. Right. So it's because I'm thinking about the internal posture of the larynx. So the internal posture of the larynx and the vocal tract is what really makes the voice sound, the vocal quality sound, good or bad, really, or croaky or non-croaky, or whatever thing we're trying to work with somebody, because voices can go creaky, or they can go husky, or they can go very weak, or they can go very quiet. So there's lots of different things that go wrong with voice, but generally if I think about the internal posture and I don't constrict the spaces, my voice will stay relatively free. That's what I feel is a free voice, right. Which may or may not be influenced by posture. But it's not a surefire thing that improving your posture, your bodily posture, will necessarily have a bearing on your voice.
So is it more like not so much a starting point, but kind of one of those things that you can eliminate quite early?
Yeah, I mean, it's something. All voice therapists, when we see somebody come in, if we notice a really tense head pattern or shoulder pattern or back pattern, that is something we're going to address. No way I will not address that at some point. But I know that I could address that and the voice not get better. I know that that's not going to fix, perhaps that's not going to get rid of a cyst or a set of nodules or something. But voice is always something you look at in balance. So it's just one thing that you could fix, because I might have people who've had lots and lots of postural work, for example, and say, oh, my voice hasn't got better. Well, it won't necessarily get better with whatever amazing technique that people have for posture, because the issue often is very much more internal larynx muscles.
Right. Okay, lovely. Thanks for watching. If you do want to follow Christella, you can follow her on Twitter at Christella Voice, or on Instagram at Christella Anthony, or Facebook at Christella Anthony Voice. We should probably combine all those together into one simple one. And also don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks very much.
Bye.